This is another sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. It's time for the spiritual and physical manifestation of the book of Revelation. Again, Revelation chapter 16, verse 16. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. ISIS captures Palmyra. Syria's antiquities chief said that the historic city of Palmyra had been unharmed since Islamic State extremists seized it. The antiquities official said that there was no damage so far, but that he was still afraid the group would blow up Palmyra's 2,000-year-old ruins, which include tombs, a citadel, and the Temple of Baal, and which the militants may view as idolatrous. He cited contacts in the central city. The Islamic State continues to take cities and towns in Iraq and Syria. So then, who's willing to fight for Iraq? Defense Secretary Ashton Carter's recent assessment of Iraqi security forces was impolitic and true, and rarely voiced by senior officials. After the devastating loss of the Iraqi city of Ramadi to the Islamic State, he told CNN that while Iraqi troops vastly outnumbered the brutal extremists, they just showed no will to fight. Mr. Carter's stark judgment once again raises the question of how long the United States should continue arming and training Iraqis and dropping bombs on targets related to the Islamic State, a Sunni Muslim group also known as ISIS or ISIL. If the Iraqis don't care enough to defend and sacrifice for their own country, then why should the United States? And should that not be a very important question to ask? So far, the American strategy is based on building up local security forces that can back up American airstrikes by recapturing territory and then holding it. Presuming ISIS can ever be defeated, no peace can be sustained if Iraqis aren't committed to preserving it. It was no surprise that the Iraqi leaders reacted angrily to Mr. Carter's remarks, prompting Vice President Joe Biden to call the Prime Minister of Iraq to reassure him of continued American support. But diplomatic words could not paper over the contradictory messages after Ramadi fell. In other words, Iraq is really messed up, and some say that ISIS or ISIL is a creation of the United States in some kind of way. On the Iraqi side, a spokesman admitted to mismanagement and poor planning by some senior military commanders, but other Iraqi officials pointed a finger at Washington, complaining of delayed American weapons deliveries, overcautious use of airstrikes, and other failings. With ISIS tightening its grip on the Sunni-dominated Anbar province, the Americans have promised to rush 1,000 rockets to help counter the vehicles laden with massive bombs that ISIS used to capture Ramadi, including 10 that had the explosive power of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. The so-called best chance of quickly responding to the Islamic State would be to get weapons and training directly into the hands of Sunni tribal fighters in Anbar. But the Shiite-led central government, which wants to control the weapons, has resisted that, just as it has resisted integrating those units into a provincial-based, government-paid National Guard. It has instead relied increasingly on Shiite-based militia, some backed by Iran, to fight against ISIS, thus worsening the country's sectarian divisions and expanding Iran's influence. Given the urgent threat, the Americans should consider working more directly with the Sunni tribes if Baghdad continues to refuse. The Iraqi state has been fragile since the Americans overthrew Saddam Hussein in 2003, in part because the Shiites have excluded Sunnis from a fair share of the country's political and economic power and fostered grievances that extremists exploit. Now, under the new threat of ISIS, the politically dysfunctional state is under more strain and may be in greater danger than ever of splitting apart into Shiite, Kurdish, and Sunni sectors. That would make defeating Islamic State forces even harder than ever. So again, in other words, Iraq is really messed up. Armageddon has started. Revelation chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. 9. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom or nation was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings and leaders of the east might be prepared. 13. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. 14. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings and leaders of the earth, and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. 16. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. Yes, it's time for the spiritual and physical manifestation of the book of Revelation. And all these are more signs.